We come to notices of motion. Does anyone wish to give a notice of motion? Go ahead, Honorable Member.
Honorable, I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, the House debate the conflict between whose land rights have been restored to them and their traditional leaders. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kubisi.
Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the NFP, I rise to give notice that on the next sitting day of this House, the House deliberates on the matter of customer care, professionalism and service excellence in government departments. I so move.
Thank you. Honorable Member.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates the closure of loopholes, including corruption, which is used to access NSFAS for students who do not deserve financial assistance. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member. Honorable Nkomo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, I shall move at the next sitting that this House debates the disregard for proper parliamentary oversight by members of the executive as mandated in the Constitution, and the culture of disrespect has grown from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Ranto.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates ways to reduce maternal, infant, and child mortality.
Honorable Member. Any other member with a notice of motion? Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next this House debate the unacceptably poor state of sanitation facilities at a number of public schools and the non-compliance to the norms and standards on infrastructure. I so move.
Thank you. Honorable Hlengwa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, I shall move of the House that this House debates the desperate water plight of residents in informal settlements such as the one in Eguruleni who are forced to get out from a cemetery, and how both national and the Gauteng provincial governments can assist these and other individuals who are struggling to access water. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable William.
Thank you, Deputy. I move on behalf of the African National Congress that in its next sitting this House debates placing the economy on a different path that ensures more sustainable growth, higher investment, and the de-racialization of the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of EFF that in its next sitting, the House debates the granting of fishing rights to the fishing communities in the coastal areas and provision of strategic support to these communities to ensure that fishing becomes sustainable.
Thank you. Honorable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move on behalf of the African Congress that in its next sitting, the House debates ways of improving scholar transport in terms of availability, efficiency, and safety. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move on behalf of EFF in its next sitting. The House debates the radical investment in development and expansion of post-secondary training and education capacity to observe all students who come from the secondary education system. I so move.
Thank you. Honorable Member at the back.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting in the House debates progress made in developing specific sectors, manufacturing and improvement in mining and agricultural industries. I thank you.
Thank you. Yes, honorable member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of the EFF that in its next sitting, the House debates the protection of the rights of street hawkers to trade in a safe and clean environment in all the cities of South Africa without fear of police harassment. Thank you.
Honorable Mngongo.
Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, I shall move at the next sitting of the House, debate a recent report alleging that police officials and medical doctors are involved in a crime syndicate which targets the road accident fund and has defrauded same in the amount of millions. I thank you.
Honorable Nkwakwa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of the United Democratic Movement.
Order,
that
honorable
at its
members.
next sitting.
Honorable members, you are in the House now. Conversation stop.
Jabulel. That at its next sitting, the House debates the need for MPs to stop yelling loudly at each other about issues public feels either of little or no relevance and importance to them. I so move. Thank you.
Honorable member. Yes, honorable member. Honorable James.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I hereby move on the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debate the asset stripping of the Pomodzi mine by Aurora, the involvement of Kulubuse Zuma and Michael Hully in this case, and the process to get money paid to thousands of workers who are still owed their salaries.
Thank you. Yes, honorable member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of the EFF that in its next sitting, the House debates provision of libraries, internet, science and computer laboratories to rural schools to bridge the qualitative gap between rural and urban education. I so move.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates ways of ensuring that the parliamentary precinct becomes more eco-friendly by maximizing recycling and other green initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, honorable member.
I rise on behalf of the EFF that in its next sitting, the House debates the need for a radical review black economic empowerment to ensure that the empowerment deals with the benefit of workers and the communities from which businesses take place, and for the development of mechanisms to limit and ultimately cap the recurrent enrichment of few individuals who have benefited from empowerment. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Honorable members, we move now to motions without, who's that? Honorable
Deputy Speaker, I rise on behalf of the Economic Freedom Fighters.
This is still on the notices of motion, or are
Yes.
you on? Okay.
That the House to note the call from the Economic Freedom Fighters, a need to invest in alternative energy and in green energy sources, including windmills, solar water heaters, and all other forms of solar energy in order to advance the green economy, advance the green revolution, to ensure that our environment is sustained for future generations. So I move.
What's that? Motions without notice now.
Thank you very much. I move without notice on behalf of the majority party that the House notes that the Kingdom of Lesotho held National Assembly elections on the 28th February, which were peaceful, transparent, credible, free and fair, thus reflecting the will of the people of the Kingdom of Lesotho, believes that the outcomes of the elections will go a long way in contributing and bringing about stability and prosperity in Lesotho. The SADC region status for their role in facilitating the process of peace that has culminated in free, fair, transparent, and credible elections that will bring lasting solution to Lesotho. I thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice that this House notes on Monday this week, Bloomberg released its index on struggling economies of the world. Also notes that the survey listed 15 countries that will have the most miserable economies in 2015. Further notes that South Africa made this infamous list, the third most painful economy in the world to live and work in. Acknowledges that these findings were made after Bloomberg economists considered both the inflation rate and the unemployment rate of each. Further acknowledges that we are the only African country on this list of misery. This House calls on President Zuma to urgently deliver on the 5 million jobs.
Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the Alliance, I hereby move without notice that this House notes that South Africa's ambassador to Japan, Dr. Mohau Peku, is in fact not a doctor at all. Also notes that Ms. Peku appears to have deliberately misled the public by stating on her CV obtained a PhD from the La Salle University in America in 2000. Further notes that the institution she claims awarded PhD closed in 1996 after news emerged that it was selling fake degrees via the internet. Acknowledges that is not alone, as there have been a number of scandals recently impact negatively on the country's reputation, brand, and institutions. Further acknowledges that lying on your CV is the equivalent of committing fraud and thus breaking the law. Welcomes the fact that the Department of International Relations have noted the DA's correspondence on the matter, and we await the outcome of the inquiry, not only on Ms. Peku's qualifications, but also on the conduct of other ambassadors representing South Africa.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No, agreed to. Sorry? Yes, sir. Chief Whip, sorry.
I sympathize with the motion. Is in fact reflecting the utter disgust we collectively hold against such individuals. I'm just wondering, who do we write that letter on behalf of? Who is receiving this letter? We should collectively condemn this behavior, but who do we write this letter to? That's the problem, yeah.
Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Oh, okay.
Honourable Deputy Speaker.
May I assist the Chief Whip? I think the letter should go to DIRCO because we are doing DIRCO's intervention on the matter. So I stated my point, and the inquiry is now being held by DIRCO.
Chief Whip, does it change your view at all? Sorry? Okay. All right. Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of economic freedom fighters, government waiting, to move without notice that the House notes that on the 16th of January 2015, the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Human Settlements advertised a tender for the provision of security services for anti-land invasion in KZN for a period. The required service provider should be well-versed with social engineering techniques and understand social dynamics that trigger violent service delivery, protest,
and the influence of political opportunism in such situation and be able to develop countermeasures with the ambit of the National Criminal Justice Framework and the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Acknowledge that this is one of the ruling party's thoughtless responses to the program of the EFF, encouraging black people to repossess their land, which the ANC government is extraordinarily committed to safeguarding for white minorities. Further acknowledge that the procurement of the security company, which will be in likelihood to be a white person to defend the white interest, paid by the black government, will not in any way derail our revolutionary land repossession program. Note that the ANC has all but abandoned its commitment to redress to the historical justice suffered by our people, exemplified more than anything else through the depossession of land people. Further note that the ANC has finally learned from the National Party government that the best way to deal with poor people, landless people is through employing apartheid-era tactics, hoping that our people will be scared for submission. We won't retreat. We are calling on the government of KZN to withdraw the tender and free up land for our people in KZN and elsewhere in the country. Further call on our government to recommit itself to a radical land reform program and expropriate stolen land without compensation. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion.
We object, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Motion falls away. Honorable Mponjani. Order,
Thank
honorable
you.
members, order.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move on behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, without notice, that the House recognizes National Water Week on the 17th to the 23rd of March this year. Further recognizes World Water Day on the 22nd March this year, which coincides with National Water Week. Acknowledges our powerful awareness campaign mechanisms that reaffirm value of water and the need for sustainable management of this scarce resource. Further acknowledges that there is a demand for manufacturing and that water and energy are inseparable, and in that water is required to generate energy and that energy is required to deliver water. Considering our current energy challenge, perhaps being mindful of this relationship may prove to be more useful in the long run. Calls upon the Department of Water and Sanitation to ensure that all members of the public are provided with clean, drinkable water and that there are no delays in service delivery. Lastly, further calls upon all South Africans to ensure that our water is treated as a scarce resource and not wasted. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Honorable.
Deputy Speaker, I move on behalf of the NFP, without notice, that this Honorable House notes that fires have been raging across Cape Peninsula for the past 5 days, which started on Sunday, affecting Maizenberg, Nodhoek, Chapman's Peak, Ward Bay, and Tokai. Further notes that initial assessments by residents, farmers, and Cape Town city officials that more than 5,000 hectares of land have been reduced to ashes. Further notes that several houses were damaged or destroyed in Nodhoek and other places. Further notes that residents in Klein, Constantia, and other places were forced to evacuate their homes in the early hours of Wednesday morning. We therefore call upon this Honorable House to extend its sympathy to those citizens of Cape Town and farmers who have suffered loss and were displaced by fires. I so move, Deputy Speaker.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Which one? Which one? Honorable Kubisa, what you've just read, sir, you didn't circulate before 12 o'clock, right? And the consequences, sir, is that it's not acceptable.
On a point of order.
What's the point of order? I'm asking you a question. Just
No.
answer me.
No, I'm saying my office circulated, Deputy Speaker.
Your office circulated it. It's not recorded as such, sir.
Oh.
Yes, unfortunately. Honorable member?
So what's going
It falls away, sir. You'll get another chance. It
Just
falls
like
away.
that?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the ANC, I move without notice that the House notes with great enthusiasm Devon Bid Committee handing over of plan for the 2020 Commonwealth Game in London on Monday 2 March 2015. Further notes that the Devon bid stands a good chance of succeed due to Edmonton, Canada decision to withdraw from the bid process to host the Commonwealth Game in 2022, which leaves Devon to be the only other city contending to host the multi-sports events. Believes that South Africa, in particular Devon, has a capacity and resources to hold successful and spectacular World Games and demonstrate by its ability to hold a successful Soccer World Cup in 2010. Recalls that the Commonwealth Games are held every 4 years and future athletics from more than 50 countries, and the next event will be held on Australian Gold Coast in 2018. Understands that the official announcement of the host city will be made on September 2, 2015 at the Federation's General Assembly in New Zealand. The host city for the 2022 Commonwealth Games is scheduled to be announced in the September 2015. Realize that when Devon's bid succeeds, this will mark Africa's first Commonwealth Games and calls upon South Africans to rely behind the Devon bids and prepare to host Commonwealth nations as well as their athletics and international fans. I thank you.
If they are not, put the motion.
We object. We object.
You object, okay. The motion falls away. Yes, honorable member at the back.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chair. Without notice, on behalf of United Democratic Movement, that the House notes that today is the birthday of the world's oldest woman, Misao Okawa, born on the 5th of March, 1898, and is reaching her years today. Further notes that her age was authenticated by Guinness World Records in 2013, which is the book that publishes world records, both human achievements and the extremes of the natural world. And lastly, wishes the oldest woman on earth a happy birthday and many, many years to come. I so move.
If there are no objection, I put the motion. No objection, agreed to. Yes, honorable member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of the EFF to move without notice that the House notes that today, 5 March, marks 2 years since the death of one of the most progressive revolutionaries of our time, the late Venezuelan president, Hugo Chavez. Further note that Chavez, born to humble origins and brought up in a mud hut by his grandmother, rose to become a symbol of imperial resistance and emancipatory politics of the left. And together with Cuba, led integration of Latin American countries into what is now called the Bolivarian Alliance of the People of Our America. That's ALBA. Acknowledge that through his initiative, PetroCaribe, created in 2005, affords 17 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean with a secure energy supply, and that in 2008, he led the formation of UNASA, and the Intergovernmental Union of South American Nations. And in 2011, the formation of Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, bringing together for the first time all 33 nations of the Western Hemisphere emancipated from the tutelage of the United States of Canada and Canada which have been excluded from the body. Further acknowledged that it was his actions that led to the rapid development and industrialization of not only Venezuela, but all of Latin America, a development that earned Chavez the wrath of United States and all those who seek to impose still neoliberal policies on the developing world. Think that it was through Chavez leadership that Venezuela land has been distributed to the landless, poverty rate has been halved, and extreme poverty reduced by 2/3. Child malnutrition reduced, access to safe drinking water increased, social expenditures were increased, and pension for the elderly went from less than 400,000 recipients to over 2 million, while hundreds of thousands of new homes were built for those in slums. Further accept that from the Bolivian Revolution led by Chavez, developing countries learned and copied emancipatory programs from the of their people. And it is for that reason that the EFF is committed to bringing about radical, self-perpetuating development through redistribution. And for that reason, we proclaim, you saw Chavez, we are Chavez, I so move.
If there are no objection, I put a motion.
Deputy Speaker, we object on the basis of historic revisionism.
Motion falls away. Any further notice? Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Hey,
Order, please, man. Let's give a member a chance.
Well, I asked Khotso to write the nose makers in this section, so I'm still waiting for him to come up with that list. I hereby move, on behalf of the United Democratic Movement, without notice, that the House, I hope the ruling party is listening to this one, congratulates Lesotho's opposition Democratic Congress for winning the most seats in parliamentary elections and for joining forces, note, with smaller parties to form a coalition government in Lesotho. Sizonishaya in 2019. Notes that it is reportedly one of the poorest countries in the world, congratulates Mr. Mosisili for declaring that the coalition government will serve Basotho, wishes the newly elected government prosperity in creating a working environment for the people of Lesotho. Okubalulekileyo i-opposition iwinile phana, full stop. Thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Honorable Member.
On behalf of the majority party, I move without notice that the House notes that the struggle hero, Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Masejo Motsootata, was laid to rest at the Zandfontein Cemetery in Pretoria, Saturday, the 28th of February, 2015. Further notes that the 62-year-old Masejo, who was the love of jazz, died after a few weeks in hospital after being involved in a motor accident. Recalls that he joined Umkhondo Wesizwe as a 22-year-old and left for exile in 1975, named Raphael Motlou. Further recalls that he was deployed to do various logistical operations around the continent and was also trained in the Soviet Union. Acknowledges that after the 1994 elections, he was involved in his last operation and was appointed in the South African National Defence Force in 1995 under his own name. Further acknowledges that He retired in 2013, a few years after the death of his wife, Ausi Sheila Motsotata, whom he met in Botswana during his exile, and conveys condolences to Joseph Motsotata's family and friends. Ke a leboga Motlatsa Mmusa Kgotla.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Yes, honorable member.
Deputy Chair, Deputy Speaker, I rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters to move without notice that the House note and for South Africans to remember that in 2014, in May, the economic freedom fighters offered its 6% of vote to the ANC in order to amend the constitution, and the ANC rejected that offer. And that offer signaled the willingness on the part of the EFF to enhance the ANC majority rule in this parliament, to amend Section 25 of the Constitution in order to effect radical economic transformation. This would have been achieved by means of dismantling colonial, apartheid, and private patterns of economic ownership. And also to remind the House that it is only through nationalization of mines and other commanding heights of the economy, as well as the expropriation of land without compensation for equal distribution in land use, that will be the only possible and cogent means for the interruption of white supremacist and racist domination of the means of production in this country. And South Africans should be reminded that their miseries are perpetuated by the African National Congress in the name of the poor. So I move.
Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Honorable member, I'm informed that yours was also not circulated, so
And
it
we
will not be
object.
put to the House. Any further notices? Any motion without notice? Yes, honorable member.
Mine was circulated, Deputy Speaker, but I'm sure it will be rejected as usual. I rise on behalf of the EFF to move without notice that the House notes that on Saturday, the 6th of March 2015, Ghana will be celebrating 50 years of independence. After a hard-fought struggle for emancipation from colonial repression and the beginning of what will be an unstoppable march of African people towards liberation. Further notes that President Nkwane Nkrumah selflessly acknowledged that the liberation of Ghana meant absolutely nothing until all Africa was liberated. And that too will mean nothing if liberation did not bring about tangible transformation to the people of the continent. Acknowledge that the role played by Kwame Nkrumah provide an ideological basis from which Africa could break free from impediment to growth imposed on the continent by colonialism and capitalism, and by some retrogressive element of African history itself. Further acknowledge that Nkrumah sought to transform Ghana into industrial superpower, a center of the continent, and a model socialist state that other African states will try to copy. Accept that many of his visions have not been achieved because, just like Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, Frantz Fanon, Almika Cabral, under the ideology of Karl Marx and Lenin, and many others genuine liberators, their leadership was cut short by the coup d'etat.
Order, honorable members, please
And
order.
ANC has sold out big time. And these leaders are so disappointed by the ANC. Further acknowledge that while Ghana opened up doors for political freedom in the continent, South Africa, under the leadership of EFF, wide and open doors for economic freedom. I salute.
We object,
Honourable
Honourable Deputy Speaker. We object to
Object.
that motion.
Objection, it falls away.
Just on
What
a-
are you
on a
raising,
point of-
honorable member?
We wanted youth commander-in-chief.
No, no, that's not a point of order. What are you raising, honorable member?
It's on a point of order. Deputy Speaker, I'd just like to check, Deputy Speaker, is it parliamentary for the member to sit down and speak on the chair? Is that showing respect?
Okay, take your seat, honorable member.
No, no,
Come
no, no.
back.
When are you going to come back?
Yeah, we'll come back.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, I apologize.
Okay.
Order, Chair.
Yes, honorable member.
Is it parliamentary when the ANC is asking where is our commander-in-chief, which is our CIC, while the... Yeah?
He's not a member of parliament.
I hope, Deputy Speaker, those members who are often reminding us that we don't know the Constitution will recall that the President is not a member of the House.
Yes, honorable member.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Is it parliamentary for a member to the number of years of the liberation of Ghana? Ghana was liberated in 1958, so it celebrated its 50 years in 2008. So it's misleading the House, Chair.
Order, Speaker. We wanted to check if they are not sleeping as usual.
Honorable members, there being no further notices of motion. Oh, honorable member, please come out. No, honorable member, what are you raising?
I rise on a point of order.
What's your point of order, honorable
The
member?
member of the ANC with the over there. He is referring to Honorable Maxon as a stupid. Can he be compelled
What's
to...
that?
A racist over there in the ANC benches.
Honorable member.
Who refers to our member here as a stupid.
Honorable member.
Be compelled to and withdraw that statement.
Honorable member, you, Honorable Matthias, Honorable Matthias, Honorable Matthias, you can't refer to an honorable member as a racist. Withdraw that, please.
Deputy Speaker, a member of this House.
I will deal with your issue you have raised. Withdraw that statement that any honorable member in the House is a racist.
I withdraw.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, which honorable member is Honorable Matthias referred to? Can you rise?
Deputy Speaker.
Honorable members, you are problem. You are creating a problem.
Can I have your attention, please?
What are you raising on?
I've described a member over there.
Yes.
In a Scotch jacket.
Yes. Honorable member in a Scotch jacket. What did you say?
With the red tie. With a red tie. Can I describe him on the basis of his race? His name, I'm told, is Williams. I'm not so sure.
Honorable member, please, can you respond to that because we must proceed with. What did you say to the honorable member?
Honorable Deputy Speaker, I didn't do anything that was disrespectful, but if you were, there was no intention. I withdraw everything. Thank you.
Honorable members, can you desist from disrupting the proceedings of the House with your bad language? All of you here in the House. Go ahead, honorable member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Without notice on behalf of the United Democratic Movement that the House notes that according to the Road Traffic Management Corporation's preliminary report, between the 1st and 27th of February 2015, over 650 people died on South African roads from 578 car crashes. Further notes that most recorded cases are in Gauteng, with total crashes resulting in 128, or of 128 resulting in 136 deaths, followed by KZN, 94 crashes, resulting in 102 deaths. Mpumalanga, 73 crashes, 93 deaths. Eastern Cape, 78 crashes, 83 deaths. 64 crashes, 80 deaths. Western Cape, 49 crashes, 49 deaths. Free State, 41 crashes, 41 deaths. Northwest, 37 crashes, 44 deaths. And Northern Cape, 14 crashes, 20 deaths. And further note that accident probabilities reveals that every hour a person dies on South African roads. Calls upon road authorities to be visible in our roads at all times to enforce road safety rules. Further calls drivers to refrain from drunk driving, to check their cars at all times before departing and stop using cell phones whilst driving. Appeal to transport to work closely with traffic departments, especially during Easter holidays, as we know that most fatalities at this period lose family members every year. I thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections agreed to. Honorable members, Honorable Minister.
Deputy Speaker, I'm very worried. I noted as the Honourable Member read his motion that just behind him was Honourable Tlomama, who looks very unhappy. Can someone please cheer him up? Thank you.
Chair, now he looks very happy. Note that.
Deputy Speaker,
Yes, Honorable Member.
I think this is a very progressive proposal from the Minister. I suggest that the Minister must just cheer him up.
The first item on the order paper is member statements. Does any member of the ANC wish to make a statement? Honorable Member.
Deputy Speaker, the sentencing of the serial rapist, Mr. Simeon Antonio Sithole, by North Gauteng High Court with 78 years imprisonment is a step forward to curb violent crime perpetrated against women and children. Sithole's reign of terror in an informal settlement in Mamelodi East in Pretoria began in 2008 and continued until his apprehension in 2013. He pleaded guilty to 21 rape charges, with his youngest victim only 11 years old at the time of the attack. Other charges included sexual assault, robbery with aggravating circumstances, and illegal possession of firearm. We call on the South African society to unite in action against such crimes. We must collectively ensure that the likes of Simeon and Sithole do not rob our women and children of their constitutional right to privacy, dignity, security, and even their lives. We commend the North Gauteng High Court for adhering to prescribed minimum for sexual offences. Mushito Jolabi.
Thank you. DA.
Thank you, Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to share with this House that the City of Cape Town has been vindicated by the South African Human Rights Commission regarding how the city provides sanitation services to informal settlements. Yesterday, the chairperson of National Commission, Advocate Mushwana, upheld the city's appeal against the findings of the Western Cape Human Rights Commission last year, in that the Provincial Commission made a number of baseless allegations regarding the city's provision of sanitation services. It is also interesting to note that these misleading findings were issued by the Deputy Chairperson of the Commission, Prex Govenda, an ANC loyalist who was deployed to the Commission after serving as an ANC member in this House. The city disputed the baseless findings immediately, and we are happy that the Human Rights Commission agrees with us. Cape Town has a nation-leading record of sanitation provision for all areas in the city, including the informal settlements. While the DA respects the role of Chapter 9 institutions, we must be allowed to participate in their work in a manner that is free from prejudice. The DA has a mission to create a caring and inclusive city, and one that tries to redress the wrongs of the past with positive reconciliation by cross-subsidizing services to the poor. We hope that this appeal will put to rest the malicious attempts to unfairly compromise the DA service delivery efforts, and that all parties instead try and work with the city to put the people of Cape Town first. I thank you.
EFF.
Motlatsa Speaker, bana ba sekolo sa Magane Primary ka tikologong ya Sekhukhune kwa province ba jele dijo tšeo di nago le mabotlelo bekeng e fetilego ka Labohlano, gomme bontši jwa bona ba amogetše sepetlele. Maemo a be a le bohloko mo e lego gore bana ba go lekana 750 ba ile ba išwa sepetlele. Bana bao ba lekanago 118 ba ile ba išwa sepetleleng sa St. Rita's go hlahlobiwa, wa go hwetšwa kalafi mola ngwana o tee a amogetše lebakanyana. Bana ba ba lekanago 632 ba ile ba išwa sepetleleng sa Jane First go hlahlobiwa gore ba hwetše kalafi, gomme ba bararo ba amogelwa sepetlele lebakanyana. Rakgwebo yo a abelago bana dijo sekolong sa Magane ka lenaneo la National School Nutrition Program ke Limpopo Cash and Carry. Ngwaga wa go feta sekolo sa Ntaki Primary School gona ka kwa tikologong ya Sekhukhune e bile le bothata ka go tshwana le jona bjo. Bothata bjo bja tikologo ya Sekhukhune bo atile mo e lego gore dihlogo tša dikolo di thomile go belaetša ke taba e. Bothata bja gore bana ba abelwa dijo di na le mabotlelo bo tšhošotše bana le batswadi ba bona lebile ga ba sa nyaka go ja dijo tše.
Nako ha o fedile Morena.
Thank you, Morena.
ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We have noted that the respective student leadership at Walter Sisulu and Wits University have engaged in highly successful fundraising initiatives to alleviate the plight of students who faced financial exclusions for academic year. It was very encouraging that the SRC successfully managed to raise an amount of 1 million to assist students who were stranded as they could not pay registration fees. It was even more encouraging to learn that the Walter Sisulu University students' leadership has come up with 900,000 from the SRC's own annual budget, which will financially assist just over 200,000 students at the campuses. We would like to congratulate and commend the student leadership at these institutions for taking the initiative to complement efforts by the government to deal with that certainly a national challenge. We further would like to urge other SRC to take a cue from this initiative of this nature so that they too can be part of the collective efforts solutions to this funding challenge. The fundraising issue is one that calls for all role players to collaboratively join hands and come up with means through which solutions can be found, and thus enabling the doors of learning to be open to thousands of young people who seek opportunities in higher education and training for the betterment of their lives.
Thank
you.
IFP.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The international petition website Avaz recently reported that 3 government-mandated helicopters are being used and stationed at the Umzivubu River in Port St. John's and are being used to disperse a poison called Roundup Ultra, which is the latest form of Agent Orange, genetic engineering maize giant Monsanto Corporation, and being spread onto thousands of hectares of arable land in the former Transkei in an effort to destroy cannabis and hemp crops in the area. However, when this poison is dispersed, it not only destroys and contaminates the soil, but also the water supply and any human or animals unlucky enough to inhale it. This action by this government is reckless and extremely irresponsible in the extreme and must be halted immediately. There are worrying reports that people from the villages have to now beg the pilots to stop and leave and to not disperse this poison any further. In this regard, we call upon the Honorable Minister of Agriculture to immediately investigate this matter and report to this House's findings. And if these reports are true, then the immediate steps we will take in order to prevent the use of this Monsanto poison in South Africa. This is in the collective interest of the people and a major threat to food security. And
visit Kamakwaza Msibi has proven that it is a force to be reckoned with. We want to thank the members of the NFA for descending on Freiheit in huge numbers. Inside and outside turned into orange. This was the epitome of jubilance. Bunjalo. Like the NFP did in 2011 and 2014, we will triumphantly marshal our forces towards victory in 2016 local government elections. The NFP marches on. Njengoba ibekile umfokashanga sephepheni ilanga bekuyizimpedu zendlovu. Plenary District Municipality dear to the NFP. Our leader was mayor of this municipality for more than 15 years, and is a municipality that among the few that were mentioned by His Excellency the State President as having demonstrated a consistent record of good administrative and financial management for 15 years. And during her tenure as mayor of ZDM, the leader of the NFP, Tula, delivered water, electricity, roads, houses, and more than 400 classrooms. The NFP-led municipality has always been a hub of political and administrative excellence. Clean and good governance has been the order of the day. We will continue to deliver water and services. The IFP was dislodged and is no longer there.
Sesiphelile isikhathi sakho baba.
So lokhu siqhubeke njalo ngoba i-ANC ne-IFP behluleka abaze bewenza umsebenzi. Yikho bekhala nje ukuthi behluleka.
ANC.
Deputy Speaker, the ANC regards as a #1 priority and has made great strides in ensuring that education and training is available to all. That is why it is deeply concerned by the document that was showed at the Western Cape Legislature recently. In the debate of the State of the Province address, that there is a list containing 403 children in Mitchell's Plain who were not enrolled in school this year. Furthermore, the statement by the MEC of Education in this province that people came into the province at the beginning of the year and therefore it was difficult to plan for that is not convincing. The ANC is disappointed with such utterances and believes that they give credence to the allegations that thousands of children in the Western Cape weren't in school because of education. The ANC believes that education is meant to promote good citizenship as well as preparing our people for the needs of modern economy and democratic society. Therefore, it appeals to the DA-run legislature in this province to resolve this problem and ensure that these children are enrolled in school as a matter of urgency, as well as a need to eliminate disparities in education.
Inspections of South Africa's nuclear reactors following the discovery of thousands of additional cracks in critical components of the steel, which is exacerbated by the continued migration of hydrogen into cracks in the steel liner of the vessels. Scientists indicate that this problem could be far beyond faults in manufacturing. If confirmed, it means that the safety of nuclear energy as a long-term solution, and these discoveries add to our concerns. Koeberg is already built on a fault line, and if it is being affected in the same way by embrittlement, this increases the risks and undermines any safety actions presently in place. Although Koeberg only supplies 5% of the nation's, its contribution is important. Any in crisis with its aging nuclear reactor fleet, increasing the risk of severe disaster. South Africa's first commercial nuclear power reactor began operating in 1984 and is part of that fleet. Those responsible must not be allowed to play as conducted in Belgium, and the public release and scrutiny of the results. Thank you.
Your time is ANC.
African business delegation to Tanzania
to explore investment opportunities is a step in the right direction. The discovery of oil and Tanzania has given more momentum to the diversification of improved productive capacity and enhance regional integration. This will contribute towards economic growth and poverty eradication.
Deputy Speaker, the plot thickens in Grahamstown as the struggle for basic service delivery and good governance continues. After 3 years of repeated calls from the DA in this House, the NCOP and the local council to place the ailing Makana municipality under administration, MEC Fikile Xasa did just that on 10 September 2014, or so we thought. The MEC of the day forgot to inform the NCOP of his decision within 7 days, as required by the Constitution. He was too busy crossing the T's and dotting the I's on the 6-month contract of the country's most expensive administrator at a whopping 1,843,644 South African rands. The DA wrote to the Minister and to the MEC at the time to warn them that the entire intervention may be called into question if the correct procedures were not followed. Just last week, in a report tabled and unanimously adopted in the NCOP, the entire intervention to save Makana was declared null and void, exposing the municipality to yet further risk. This report states, and I quote, "With regard to the intervention in Makana local municipality, procedural and substantive requirements have not been met. In particular, requirements of Section 1392A2 and 1396B of the Constitution. By implication, the intervention is invalid to the extent of it being inconsistent with the Constitution. Since procedural requirements of the Constitution were not met, the intervention has been rendered null and void. The DA is of the opinion that any expenditure from 10 September last year could now be considered fruitless and wasteful. So, Honourable Minister, when will you ask the MEC to pay back the money?"
ANC. ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I believe that the learners with disabilities have the right to education with appropriate assistive technology and specialized teaching. Hence, it commends the sponsoring of 10 braille copies of Madiba's autobiography, The Long Walk to Freedom, by the Mandela Foundation's partner, etc. Fleet Management, to the learners at Prince of School for the Visual Impaired on Monday, 23rd of February 2015. This Braille initiative is set to give visually impaired learners access to Madiba's life story and the monumental legacy he left behind, an important narrative they might otherwise not have been exposed to. This initiative forms part of Nelson Mandela's Foundation ongoing literacy drive that focuses on education, literacy, and the culture of reading as key aspects of Madiba's legacy. The ANC supports the initiatives by the Mandela's Foundation's partners to make the Braille available, giving these learners opportunity to discover Madiba's life history themselves so that they too can make their own meaning of his legacy. Moreover, he calls for support for these projects to become a national drive so that all visually impaired learners can also have access to Braille copies of Madiba's autobiography.
Deputy Speaker, Arang SA's court application to have the Speaker declare to hold office as such and for an order directing that a motion of no confidence in the President should be voted upon a secret ballot is on the High Court roll for 11 May 2015. A High Court judge has already determined that it is important that an agent matter is an agent matter, and the Judge President has allocated it to a bench comprising of 3 judges. Accepting such a motion has now become the sacred duty of this Assembly. If the remaining constitutionalists, the ANC members of Parliament, vote with the minority parties by a secret ballot on a motion of no confidence in the President, the motion may well be adopted and the National Assembly will have served the foundational principle for our constitutional dispensation. That
We can't hear anything. These people are making noise. We can't hear anything.
Honorable members, please be orderly, man. Members want to hear Ahang's statement. Please be quiet. Please be quiet, honorable members.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Can I start from the beginning?
No, don't do that. Order, members.
If the remaining constitutionalists in the ranks of the ANC members of parliament vote with the minority parties by secret ballot
What's
on
the
a
point of
motion of
order?
no confidence in the president, the motion may
Point of
well
order,
be...
sir.
Do you want to interrupt him?
He should not be allowed to withdraw the motion.
Continue, honorable member. It's a statement, honorable member.
If the remaining constitutionalists in the ranks of the ANC members of parliament vote with the minority parties by secret ballot on a motion of no confidence in the president, the motion may well be adopted and the National Assembly would have served the foundational principle for our constitutional dispensation. I would have thought that all opposition parties will have been united in the view that the Speaker is not fit to preside over the National Assembly and that the President is not fit to the country. I would have thought that they will be united in their support for Arang's court application, notwithstanding the fact that not all of them are parties to it.
Honorable member, your time has expired. ANC.
Thank you, your Speaker. The ANC is dedicated to the mobilization of available resources in the both private and public health sectors to ensure improved health outcomes for all South Africans. And as such, the ANC government in Limpopo has purchased and added over 50 state-of-the-art ambulances to its healthcare facilities across the province. And without doubt, the ambulances have already brought much relief in making service available to all the people of Limpopo, as well as ensuring the better health outcome and improving the emergency medical services in that province. The ANC welcomed the announcement made by the Limpopo Premier during the State of Provincial Address. Its plan of Limpopo government to buy 50 more ambulances in the next 5 years as means to improve access to health care facilities as well as the means to save more lives of people of Limpopo. Thank you, Chairperson.
Deputy Speaker, this past weekend, the country was outraged by the revelation that the cadres, cousins, and cronies of Loot Freely House, had again plundered the public purse to line their own pockets. I refer specifically to the 631 million rand tender awarded to the politically connected Sienza Group, who were allegedly irregularly appointed to oversee the delivery of 66,000 toilets in Amatola District Municipality. To date, more than 60 million rand has been paid out, but no toilets have been delivered. The primary beneficiaries are reported to be President Zuma's son-in-law, ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe's wife and son,
Honorable Speaker.
and Minister Lindiwe Zulu's son.
Honorable member, just hold
On a point of order.
Yes, honorable member, what are you raising?
The leader of the opposition read this motion a couple of days.
Point of order, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, it's a member's statement. It's not a motion, and the member is well within his rights to make the statement in the House and to solicit a response from the ministers, which we hope will be forthcoming.
Deputy Speaker, may I continue?
And honorable member, but be careful of the allegations you are making against members of the House here.
I haven't made any
without
allegations of
substantiation. Proceed, honorable member. We are listening to you. Remember?
The primary beneficiaries are reported to be President Zuma's son-in-law, ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe's wife and son, and Minister Lindiwe Zulu's son. It has further been reported that the directors and shareholders have purchased luxury sports cars and upmarket houses with the funds transferred so far, and that many of the workers on the ground have not been paid for the work they have done. Something stinks, Deputy Speaker, and it is the attitude of entitlement that pervades ANC Pty Limited. At what point is the Minister of Cooperative Governance going to put an end to the endemic corruption that is prevalent throughout the ANC and the municipal supply chain management system? At what point is he going to hold corrupt officials to account and prevent politicians and their immediate families from doing business with the state? Enough is enough. Prosecute those responsible and make them pay back the money, as is required by Section 32 of the MFMA.
ANC.
and inequality, and its promotion should be the cornerstone of all our efforts. Therefore, the ANC commends the government's amendments to the labor laws meant to address equal treatment, fair engagement in collective treatment as the permanent employees who are doing the same job, only unless there is a genuine justification for them to be treated otherwise. The key milestone of these amendments to new labor laws that are now in force, amongst others, the regulation of temporary employment, which is now limited to a period of not exceeding 3 months, unionization in vulnerable sectors, improving the functioning of labor market institutions such as the CCMA, bargaining and statutory councils, addressing the current problems in industrial disputes and dispute resolution enforcement, and enhancing compliance and disputes concerning discrimination and pay for work of equal value. The ANC also commends the strides taken by the Department of Labor and CCMA for undertaking joint national education road shows to create awareness of these amendments, as they contribute a lot to decent work, which embraces both the need for more jobs and for better quality jobs. Ke a leboga. Thank you very much. That concludes the statement. We now go to ministerial responses, if any. Honorable Masuta.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'd like to commend the honorable member representing the African National Congress for raising the very important matter of the sexual assault of women. As the progressive democratic government, we have embarked on a campaign for many years now against abuse, including sexual abuse of women and children. And we therefore compliment the High Court for taking a stance against such perpetrators as this gentleman who was sentenced to over 70 years in prison. And we look forward, of course, to welcoming him to our correctional facilities and to keep him there for a rather very long time, as the court has dictated, but also to encourage our communities to be vigilant and to make sure that we contribute and work together towards the safety of our women and girls in particular. Because every girl, every woman, it's somebody's mother, it's somebody's grandmother, it's somebody's aunt, and the pain that is caused by such heinous does not only hurt the victim, but hurts many families, many communities, both men and women. So we strongly support the proposal that we stand together in campaigning against the abuse and the victimization of women. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, thank you very much. Honorable Deputy Minister Kota Hendricks.
Kota Fredericks. Thank you, House Chair. Honorable God, it's surprising me that you can be the very same person who comes and talk about on sanitation when the issue of porta in the province was done at your time. So what is very, very clear, that you are far from the truth. In fact, what you are doing, you are making mockery of the plight of our people who live without sanitation, who live with the chambers which are portas. Go to Nkanini, you must go to Philippi, you must go to Joe Slovo, my constituency in Danun, I had a public meeting with them last week. They still don't have toilets. Those Slovo, they don't have toilets. In fact, the Department of Human Settlements is giving urban settlement development grant to the city of Cape Town. They are not able to deliver. That is why we are not able to accredit them to deliver, because our record of service shows clearly that as the department, we don't get value for. We give them 800 million.
Order, honorable members, we can't hear her.
We give them 800 million to build houses. You can see you everywhere because city is not able to deliver. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Honorable Minister Nglesi, Public Works.
Just two responses. Chairperson. One is on the issue by Honorable Nkadimeng on the issue of fundraising in the universities. I think as government, we've long acknowledged that the NAFSAS, this scheme is not covering everyone, despite the fact that it's increased from 2 billion to about 9 billion within 5 years. It's an indication that we're very serious to try and cover the poor. But we have accepted that. Initiatives like these, where people out of their own are able to mobilize funds, must be encouraged. And indeed, Honorable Member, we need to mobilize even the private sector to deal with those who are not covered. And that's part of extending higher education. If you look at the thousands who have benefited from this particular scheme, it shows that progressively we are moving forward. On the second issue, the one raised by the DA member in the Eastern Cape. You see, it's important that we talk about corruption when there's corruption. But it's dangerous without establishing the facts that we run with newspaper headlines. Let's first establish facts and say supply chain processes were violated, then we're able to talk about that. But just to run with the newspaper headlines is not helping us. So let's establish the facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Nglesi. Honorable members, I now call on Honorable Minister Pando, Science and Technology.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson. Deputy Chairperson, I believe the honourable member of the DA who read the statement Mr. Quarter Fredericks referred to infringed Rule 66 of the National Assembly rules in her reference to the Human Rights Commissioner, Pregs Govender. And it's a pity the chair did not actually rule on that matter. I then would like to indicate to the colleague from the NFP, since he raised with great glee the rally that was held last Saturday, that he should have given us the full story, including the tomato throwing that occurred at that rally, because it would have been important
on a point of order, Chair. On a point of order, Chair.
Honorable Pando, let's allow you. Yeah. Honorable
10
Kubisa,
of them who come to our rally.
Honorable Kubisa, that's not a point of order. Please don't do that.
But these were...
Once the member has read his statement, we will comment on it, and he cannot direct how we comment. That in fact, science has moved a long way since Coburg. The honorable member is not listening. Built to enhance our energy provision in South Africa.
On a point of order, Chair.
We are fully alert.
On a point of order, Chair.
Honorable Kubisa, that's not a point of order. You started. Honorable Kubisa, please sit down.
Reconvened.
Honorable Kubisa, I don't expect you to do that. You cannot start by, I want to ask whilst you have called for an order. Please.
I would suggest that the Ahang member who actually smiled when he read his statement, and thus he didn't need me to move across, Honorable Manson. I would suggest to him that, as well as withdrawing motion.
Thank you, Honorable Pando. Honorable Oliphant, Minister Labour.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Yes, we will continue to monitor the implementation of the laws that we have just amended. And I must say, I want to thank the members of the study group of the African National Congress by following up on those issues. And as we speak, the department is on the road shows, capacitating the employers and the workers on the impact of those legislation. And House Chair, I believe that those who are screaming and kicking, they will be able, particularly here in the Western Cape. And I must say the first report on the employment equity, including the payment of equal pay for equal work, the first report will be produced in October. And secondly, Honorable House Chair, the issue that was raised by Honorable Kubisa about the ANC and the IFP, I just want to remind the Honorable Member, and therefore you must ask her why he didn't deliver on behalf of the IFP. Thank you very much, House Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Oliphant. Deputy Minister DTI, Honorable Masina.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Just want to acknowledge the statement from the ANC member who spoke about the regional integration, its importance in the country, including SADC, COMESA, and EAC, to ensure that that work is done because the population is endowed with minerals, resources throughout, so we must do this work collectively. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Zokwana. The last one, the Honorable Masina. The last one. Oh, I was not aware. I'm sorry, Honorable Zokwana. I already had 6 responses. Thank you. Member, yes, you are allowed.
Chairperson, I'd just like to ask the Minister Oliphant, when is the advisor going to return the card and stop buying nappies?
I can't hear you.
When is the advisor of the minister gonna
Honorable
pay back the
member,
money?
when you start with when, it's not an order.
Chair to say ish in the House.
That's how I feel. I'm sorry. There's nothing derogatory about that. Honorable members, if we can stick and make sure that the decorum is upheld, those things won't happen. You're also frustrating me when you do certain things. Thank you very much. The secretary will read the first order of the day.
Order, please.
Babsheng.
No, I was saying, Honorable Chair, that
I now recognize the chairperson of Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services, Honorable Motsekga.
Honorable Chairperson, salaries are payable to Constitutional Court judges and judges annually with effect from the 1st April 2014, tabled on 5th February 2015, and referred to it, recommends that the House approves the notice and schedule. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Are there any objections to the approval of the draft notice and schedule determining the rate with effect from April 1st, 2014, at which salaries, allowances, and benefits are payable to the Constitutional Court judges and judges annually? Are there any objections? No.
Salaries, allowances, and benefits are payable to magistrates annually.
I'll recognize the Honorable Motsekga.
Having considered the request of approval by Parliament on the draft notice and schedule rate at which salaries are payable to magistrates annually with effect from 1st April 2014,
tabled on 5th February 2015 and referred to it, recommends that the House approves the notice and schedule. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Motshekga. I pose the question, are there any objections to the approval of the draft notice and scheduling determining the rate with effect from 1st April 2014 at which salary allowances and benefits are payable to the magistrates annually? Any objections? No objections, agreed to. Thank you very much. The third order, Secretary.
Consideration of interim report of Portfolio Committee on Justice and Corrections.
I recognize Honorable Motshekga.
Honorable 15 and Section 16 of the Act, inconsistent with the Constitution and invalid. The declaration of invalidity was suspended for 18 months from the date of the judgment, that is the 3rd 2013, in order to allow Parliament to correct the defect. The deadline by which to correct this defect is 2nd April 2015. In the J case, the Constitutional Court declared Section 50, Section 2A of the Act inconsistent with the Constitution and invalid. The declaration of invalidity was suspended for 15 months from the date of the order, that is 6th May 2015. The bill was advertised for comment on Parliament's website and social media platforms as from 15 December 2015 and in newspapers as from 26 January 2015. By the end of business on 2nd February 2015, the committee had already received close to 440 submissions of justice and constitutional development. Given the complexity and sensitivity of the issues which relate to this, especially that the process to amend the legislation should allow all relevant parties to provide input, the committee agreed that it would be most appropriate to extend its consultation process so as to ensure adequate public participation and thorough deliberations. To date, the committee has received 932 and that the Constitutional Court should be approached for an extension. In the light of the above, Chairperson, the committee recommends that the National Assembly supports its request that the Constitutional Court be approached for an extension of deadline set in the Teddy Bear case to 5th August 2015, which is the deadline set in the J.
Is the Honorable Chief Whip of the Majority Party?
I move that the House supports the report and the request.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? Honorable Waters?
Chair, the DA would like to make a declaration, please. Thank you.
The declaration has been asked for. You are allowed.
Honourable members, the Democratic Alliance supports the request by the committee that the National Assembly supports this request. Effect to 2 Constitutional Court judgments, bringing the relevant act in line with the position adopted by the Constitutional Court. The amendments are therefore both mandatory and desirable. We wish to point out, however, that the deadline in the Teddy Bear case was set as far back as 3rd October 2013, and the deadline in the J case as far back as the 6th of May 2014. There has been enormous public interest in and comment by the public regarding these amendments. It's an emotional issue and it is necessary for further comment, necessarily so. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other party?
That Parliament should apply to the Constitutional Court for an extension to deal with this controversial matter. And this is the first time, as far as I know, as to whether it is constitutionally permissible for children 12 to 16 years of age to be subject to criminal sanctions in order to that children should or should not be engaged in sexual conduct. It relates only to decriminalization. It must be emphasized that the judgment does not affect the ban on adults having sex with children below the age of 16. Chairperson, the ACDP also wants to make it very clear that we believe that it is morally wrong and not in the best interests of children to engage in sex at all. However, the reality is that it is happening, and the issue is then, how do we best address this, and whether by criminalizing the risks associated therewith will be alleviated. Clearly, the family, churches, and other faith-based and educational institutions, as well as society as a whole, needs to play a far greater role in teaching and educating children about abstinence and the risks of premature sexual activities. The state should only come in as a last resort where necessary. Now, while the ACDP doesn't necessarily agree with the judgment that found the criminal approach unconstitutional, and we believe children need not only to be protected from adult children, adult predators, and other older children, but also from themselves. Do they have the cognitive development at the impressionable age of 12 to take decisions with such far-reaching consequences? And why do we set the age of 18 for buying cigarettes and alcohol? Clearly, we understand that there are harmful effects and that children have the cognitive development at that age. On the other hand, we appreciate that in some instances, the application to the Constitutional Court, we are in the middle of public hearings on this very sensitive issue, and we in the Portfolio Committee.
Any other party?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. The African National Congress support this request on the basis that the bill seeks to decriminalize consequential sex amongst the adolescents. In a constitutional court case brought by Teddy Bear Clinic, the judges ruled that certain portions of Sexual Offences and Related Matters Act were unconstitutional, understanding the constitutional nature of our democracy, that our legislature may be subjected to the judicial review, and in complying with the Constitutional Court ruling, we request that the court grant an extension so that we are able to rest. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I repeat, the motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? Agreed to. Thank you. We now ask the Secretary to read the last order.
Debate on
The Honorable, the Minister of Women in the Presidency.
Thank you. Of the 60th anniversary of the Freedom Charter, which exalts the vital role women have played and continue to play in virtually all spheres of life, the role played by the women of South Africa in ushering our democratic rule speaks of extraordinary resilience, perseverance, community building, and triumph. On this occasion, we take stock and review past progress, as well as barriers that continue to militate against women empowerment in our country. This occasion offers an opportunity to elevate women's and gender equality, as well as pay tribute to women that have devoted their lives to the struggle for the cause of women's emancipation and are still mobilized for this cause. It is therefore befitting that as we celebrate the International Women's Day, we pause to reflect on the blueprint of our revolutionary vision expressed by our people in 1955 when they declared that it belongs to all who live in it. Today, as we celebrate this day, we are yet to be reminded of the sacrosanct declaration made by South Africans from all walks of life that converged in Kliptown in 1955, that the people shall govern. And the ANC has consciously adopted a 50% women representation in active level. A lot has been achieved in ensuring that the people govern. However, we still have a long way to go in ensuring that women occupy their rightful position in society. What remains a vexing challenge is ensuring that we move with necessary speed in transforming the quantum in our lifetime, because our country is taking great strides to redress gender imbalances and promote women's rights. The vigorous implementation women quotas has gone a long way in challenging the attitude echelons of companies. It's not only about numbers, but also about improved performance. Initiatives such as the 30% Club deserves a special mention. 30% Club is a group of diverse board of directors, has a better understanding of markets that are themselves diverse in terms of gender. The private sector is also more conscious of the spin-offs that are brought by a gender diverse board in decision-making processes as compared to a more homogeneous board. Aviva, with Cox article in Havana Business Review, said that, I quote, large and established organizations are finally starting to accept that gender imbalance are a business problem, and that it is now important to design the right response. To maximize this moment, leaders need to proceed strategically, close quote, in color, but they bring life. Brings to mind an Ethiopian proverb that says, I quote, where a woman rules, streams run uphill, close quote. This celebration of our International Women's Day during this year of the Freedom Charter must unleash new impetus in all of us to attend to the unfinished business of ensuring women's empowerment. The national development is an overarching plan and vision to realize the ideals of the Freedom Charter, to put in place a South Africa that truly belongs to all who live in it. This reminds us of the words of our late President Nelson Mandela at his inauguration in May 1994. I quote, we enter into a covenant that we shall build a society in which all South Africans, both black and white, will be able to walk tall, any fear in their hearts, assured of their alienable a global effort to create a better world order where there shall be peace and friendship, originally called the International Working Women's Day. It first started as a political and socialist movement in 1909 in 4 European countries until the late 8th of March as the official day for the International Women's Day. At the UN Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing in 1990, not only because of their points of view and talents are needed, but also as a matter of their human rights. This year, the CSW will be reviewing 20 years of implementation of Beijing Platform for Action by member states. Therefore, this year's International Women's Days take place at a strategic moment as South Africa is preparing itself to submit a report on 20 years of the implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. It takes place at a strategic moment where the global community is intensifying efforts towards achievements of the Millennium Development Goals, moving towards sustainable development goals, in a post-2050 development agenda. This is particularly important for us as a country as we continue to deal with the triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality of which women are at the receiving end. We therefore believe that nothing should be done for women without women. The empowerment of women is not an act of charity or the results of humanitarian or compassionate attitude. The empowerment of women is a fundamental necessity of development. It guarantees the guarantee of its continuity and the precondition victory. The sustainable development goals must clearly reflect our collective resolve to empower women. It must be gendered mainstream. I can tell you that despite certain persisting challenges, South Africa has done well on the goals such as recently assert that doors of learning has been opened not only to the boy child but also to the girl child. In education shows that 61% of tertiary degree qualifications in South Africa were awarded to women. We have also seen more girls being trained in skills relevant to our economic growth as a nation. Access to funding through government schemes such as the NSFA has made it possible for girls from poor families to complete their education studies. This year's United Nations theme, which is Equality for Women is Progress for All, which emphasizes how gender equality, empowerment of women, women's full enjoyment of human rights, and the eradication are essential to economic and social development. It also stresses the vital role of women as agents of development. At the regional level, the AU declared 2015 as the year of women empowerment, a declaration calling for the respective governments to achieve gender equality by 2020, as spelled out in the Agenda 2063. In line with our national theme and the fact that in South Africa, March is a Human Rights Month, the theme we are reflecting on today is Women's Rights are Human Rights. Together, moving a non-violent South Africa are also about equality. South Africa has the best policy framework that is necessary to drive the investment and economic growth that will free our people, the triple challenges of unemployment, inequality, which rates South Africa as the 18th out of 135 best place in the world to be a woman. I must say that the challenge is the failure to mainstream gender in the ideas, programs, budgets, and policies that facilitate the implementation of our highly rated legal framework. Therefore, in order for us as South Africa to realize the aspirations of our constitution, women and girls must top the development agenda. The other challenge is violence against women and girls. It takes a devastating toll on women's lives, on their family, society as a whole. Most societies prohibit such violence, yet the reality is that too often it is covered up or condoned. A 1994 study based on World Bank data found that out of about 10 selected risk factors facing women, rape and domestic violence rated higher than motor vehicle accidents, war, and malaria. As you may know, the mandate of my department is to promote women's social conditions and empowerment and development and human rights. As we are preparing for the celebration of the 60th anniversary of the Freedom Charter, but also in 1956, the Women's March, which will be happening in 2016. We must bring the Freedom Charter to life and assess progress, review policies and programs in order to position gender equality and women's empowerment at the center of the country's and global developmental agenda. Consonant to the place from the second quarter of 2015 in order to provide a platform for discourse on the strides made towards the attainment of women's empowerment and gender equality in South Africa. The dialogues will give women a voice to tell their stories, what they want and how they want it. In this context, the celebration of the 60th anniversary of the Freedom Charter will serve as a platform of assessing our achievements in the arena of gender equality, women's empowerment, and above all, the realization of a South Africa that truly belongs to all who live in it. The outcome of the dialogue will continue to the development of a report on the status of women, which will be launched by the President on the 9th of August 2015, the National Women's Day. The dialogue will be hosted in the format of workshops scheduled through the weeks. The outcome of the dialogues will also facilitate the mapping of a sustainable developmental agenda for the 21st century. It is said that, I quote, "The world suffers a lot, not because of the violence of bad people, but because of the silence of good people." That was Napoleon, close quote. Therefore, stand up and be counted. This is a clarion call to all, government, business, and civil society, to join hands in addressing the mammoth task before us and to mobilize communities to participate in the dialogue in order for the outcome of the dialogue to determine the trajectory of development in South Africa. The task...
Honorable House Chair.
Honorable Robinson, just take your chair. What?
The minister has made it like that the minister said, "Iseyinde lendlela," instead of "isende lendlela."
Minister, I think the influence of our languages results in that. I'm happy you picked it up, but don't worry about it. We understood exactly what she was saying. Honorable Robinson, please continue. Honorable members, order. Thank you. Honorable members, can we observe Rule 46? Thank you very much. Continue.
Honourable House Chair, members. The subject of our debate today is women's rights are moving a non-violent South Africa forward. I want us all to cast back our minds to recent events in this House. The first incursion of armed riot police in the chamber just before the 16 days of activism against violence perpetrated against women. Then the historic debate when angelic respect the Constitution debate, press freedom and information was curtailed. Deputy Speaker and I recently attended the Magna Commonwealth Conference in London. Role as MPs to advocate for. I will focus on the right to bodily integrity, one of the most fundamental human rights enshrined in our Constitution, in constitutions all over the world. Ek herhaal. Die reg tot liggaamlike integriteit is een van die mees basiese menseregte. And this includes the right to be free from both public and private violence. Also, the right to psychological integrity and security over one's body. The violation of bodily integrity is an unethical infringement, intrusive and possibly criminal. Sadly, there are many cases of rape and abuse in South Africa, but a recent intrusive violation perpetrated by female police officers is a double abomination. Let me read to you from this week's IOL News. A Cape Town woman was driving home when she was pulled over by 3 members of the flying squad. 2 lady officers instructed the woman to get in the seat of a car, where they fondled her breasts and told her to take off her underwear so that the victim could be examined internally back and front, supposedly looking for drugs. This intrusion and invasion of the woman's bodily integrity was inexcusable and left this young woman traumatized. This from an officer who is meant to protect the public and uphold law and order. It was outrageous. Is this the type of police service a democratic South Africa deserves? What has the Minister of Police to say about this incident? He's not here. Article 10 of the Women's Charter for Effective Equality, drawn up by the Women's National Coalition in 1994, reads, "Women shall be entitled to security and integrity of the person, which includes the right to be free from all violence, legal protection against racial and sexual harassment, all forms of abuse." And so we go on and on. Wonderful principles. But what happened to those principles espoused by the struggle veterans of yesteryear? Today in the Times, there was an article about the Hawks saved 7 students who'd been lured to Bloemfontein on the promise that their university fees would be paid, but who had been held as sex slaves instead. Human trafficking in our country happens on a daily basis. I'd also like to mention the right to gender equality for widows, one of the most vulnerable and disadvantaged groups in South Africa. The CGE has exposed the negative experience of widows whose rights are often violated by family and even the judicial and law enforcement systems that are meant to serve and protect them. Widows are often abused, mistreated, isolators, sometimes accused of witchcraft and even being chased out of their homes and off their lands. Honourable members, we need to stop and urgently assess our progress or moral retrogression as a nation. Fine foundations were laid in our Constitution, but we need to implement our laws and conventions so that we can see democracy in and not as a hollow edifice. In Alan Paton's powerful novel, Cry the Beloved Country, written during the times of apartheid, he wrote, "The tragedy is not that things are broken. The tragedy is that things are not mended again." Honourable, let us rise to the challenge and work together to mend what is broken in South Africa. Enkosi, ndiyabulela.
Ndiyabulela makhe, ngizobiza umhlonishwa Ketabahle.
House Chair, honorable members, women's rights are human rights. Thomas Sankara, one of the very few African leaders who have always emphasized on women's rights, once said, "The revolution and women's liberation go together. We do not talk of women's emancipation as an act of charity out of search of human compassion. It is a basic necessity for the revolution to triumph. This is the view under which our society must operate in order to fully recognize and respect women's rights. Meaningful social transformation cannot occur without the active participation and support of women across all spheres of our society. Women make up 49.6% of the world population and 52% of South Africa's population, but have very little to no representation in the most progressive spheres of society and are dominant. Statistics such as poverty and unemployment are concerned, especially in first world countries. As the economic freedom fighters, a movement that is passionate about land expropriation without compensation and the nationalization of all strategic economic sectors for the benefit of all, we note that in many African countries, the majority of small-scale farmers are women, and they have huge potential trade between African countries and the global market. Not only can they trade produce and livestock, but can trade the wide range of skills which are highly sought after the globe: education, health and professional services such as accountancy and law, for example. The onus is then on us for all the efforts to facilitate trade, increase productivity in export-oriented sectors, and improve competitiveness competitiveness do not only benefit men as they currently do. Women play a key role in trade and are essential to the continent's affinity for exploiting trade potential. What we need to do, however, is prioritize protecting our industries, especially those that are new, vulnerable, and strategically important from foreign competitors, and review our trade policies. We must also create a socially responsive economic system that prioritizes our people before profits and groom them to grow from strength to strength and not highly dependent on government grants. There should be a state-led intervention in the agro-processing sector and entire agricultural value chain and textile industries to ensure the active participation of women in the economy. Women should be equipped with skills and given financial, technical, and administrative support in whatever strategic sector they may be interested in. Bangabethwa. Teen mothers must not get cash for their child support grants. Instead, they must get food and clothing vouchers. This is a measure to decrease a number of young women falling pregnant so they can get social grants. Becoming a young mother has devastating effects on one's life and can be a dead end for some. There is a great concern over underrepresentation of women in the workplace, especially at top management and senior management level, in both the private and public sector. 20 years into democracy, not have capable or suitable women to fit into roles traditionally kept for men is untrue. What is true is that society we live in to fully recognize and respect women, while men who are so used to power and its benefits are willing to let go of that power.
Honorable member, your time is up.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Nkomo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, honorable members. In 1911, we saw the International Women's Day being honored for the first time in Austria, Denmark, Germany, and Switzerland. This was on the 19th of March. In that year, more than 1 million women and men attended the International Women's Day rallies, campaigns for women's rights to work, to vote, to be trained, and to hold public office and end discrimination. I stand before you today as a representative not only of the Inkatha Freedom Party, but also as a woman of South Africa. And I state to you in this house that we are still failing most women of this country. And it's very important for us to acknowledge this. Our women and young girls are treated as second-rate and suffer violently, and most of them even placed in a situation where they are even killed, what is called femicide, by the hands of our men on a daily basis. And this day is an occasion for looking back on past struggles and accomplishment, and more importantly, for looking ahead to ensure that our future generations of women have a better life, have equal standing and full protection in our societies. Gender equality, although constitutionally enshrined and supported in terms of Chapter 9 institutions, still remains largely untransformed, which clearly reminds me of the deeply engraved social ills and underlying prejudices towards women in the workplace and in general in South Africa. Gender activism in South Africa has always been supported by the Inkatha Freedom Party, and in particular by the president of our party, Prince Buthelezi, who said, and I quote, "Long before gender activism was born in South Africa, I recognize that women have a vital role in society that cannot be limited to the home and family. The backbone of our liberation struggle. They are the backbone of political mobilization and must become the backbone of moral regeneration. Women have an invaluable contribution to make to science, the economy, business, politics, medicine, the arts, industry, and every sphere of life. I have always acted on these convictions. During apartheid, as soon as we had limited legislative powers in KwaZulu, I tackled the code of the Zulu law and removed provisions that discriminated against women and considered them minors. Thus, for the first time, Black women were granted property rights. I also expunged the barbaric provision that gave a husband the right to administer corporal punishment to his wife. Abuse of women is not a cultural thing. It is pure evil." Close quote.
Honorable Nkomo, your
Thank
time
you.
is up. Honorable Mncwabe.
Honorable Chair of the House, honorable members. On Sunday, we'll be joining the international community in celebrating International Women's Day. This is an occasion to highlight social awareness of the struggles of women worldwide. As a human right, Honorable Chair, women's rights are essentially rooted in equality. We must, however, distinguish between formal equality and substantive equality. It is the responsibility of the state to ensure formal gender equality. And we believe that much has been done in South Africa to achieve this goal. According to the World Economic Forum, South Africa is ranked number 17th out of 136 countries in terms of gender equality. This is testimony to the progress in formal gender equality. In terms of political engagement, South Africa ranks a highly commendable number 8 of 136 countries in gender equality according to the World Economic Forum. Yet, Honorable Chair, this statistic once again refers to the formal equality. Despite the strides made, we just need to look at here in Parliament to realize that women are still not substantially equal in the political arena. Out of the 12 parties represented in this House, only 2 are led by women. That includes the leader of my own party, Mrs. Vizet Kamagwaza-Msibi. That speaks volume for the lack of women's substantive political equality in South Africa. When we look at gender and economic equality, we note while there has been an increase in women at senior and middle management level, they still have a long way to go to shatter the glass ceiling of top management. The World Economic Forum reports of 2014 reveals that South African women earn far less than men doing the same job. It reports a staggering 33% difference in pay between men and women employed in South Africa for the same task. It is, however, in the arena of gender-based violence, Honorable Chair, where the true nature of social gender inequality becomes painfully evident. A 2014 report by KPMG on gender-based violence in South Africa estimates that 1 in 10 experience gender-based violence every year, and sadly, most often the perpetrator is an intimate partner of those women affected.
Honorable member, your time is up.
Ngiyabonga Somlo.
Mama Majeke, ilunga elihloniphekile uMajeke.
Honorable Chair and honorable members, the South African Constitution Act 108 of 1996, Chapter 5 protects women's rights to property and affirms that everyone has a right to equality and freedom. However, one of the biggest social practices hindering the rights of women is inability to separate African culture from the system that oppresses freedom of women. This is why it is important that we must remove patriarchy from our understanding of culture and human rights. Secondly, the rights and the relevant legislation giving effect to the Constitution are not known to those for whom they are designed for primary beneficiation. In this regard, we must answer the question how this important debate practically benefits its primary motive force, the African women. The African Union Gender Policy, as adopted by AU Assembly of Heads of State and Government in February 2009, declared 2010 to 2020 as an African Women's Decade. Amongst others, the objectives of African Women's Decade is to reinvigorate commitments to accelerated implementation of the agreed global and regional commitments of gender equality and women empowerment, with special focus on fighting poverty, promoting economic empowerment and women entrepreneurship, agriculture, and food security. In 2015, the middle of the African Women Decade, which also concludes the phase, there are still large gender inequalities that exist in the ownership and control of an asset primary importance. Gender asset gap with respect to ownership of land remains a significant gap that requires an urgent attention. Gender inequality in land ownership is related to male preference in inheritance, male privilege in marriage, male bias in community, as well as gender bias in land market. Women are less likely to be land buyers than men. There are also important differences by gender on how land is acquired. Inheritance is the primary means by which most women become landowners. Gender equality needs to be part of every strategy for eradication of poverty, both as an end and means to eradication other forms of human poverty. Empowering women by ensuring equal rights and access to land, credit, and job opportunity must be high in the agenda for poverty eradication. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member Tarabella Machesi.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. International Women's Day is a time to reflect on progress made, to call change, and to celebrate acts of courage and determination of women. Together as South African women from all walks of life, from the shantytown to Ematyotyombe, to Ekasi, to Esan, we joined the global community and the women of the world in commemorating this year's International Women's Day. As we stand in solidarity with all the women who are faced with conflicts in their own home countries, we say your cries are our cries, and your strength is our strength. Honorable Chairperson, South Africa has good pieces of legislation that governs us and aim to protect women from all forms of abuse and discrimination, but we lack in implementation. I would like to talk about the National Development Plan. As much as it align ourselves to the development plan, but one thing that the government has omitted on the ends group with no reference to or status, being a platform for government, it's committed to gender equality, and there are majority voted pregnancy, when it cost of gender care, gender-based violence. In the informal, in the NDP, they are very much ad hoc. While some have prioritized women as beneficiaries, and this provides a measure of women's relief, income relief. No measures have been put in place to enable women-headed businesses to enter the formal economy, such as tendering for municipal services. They are also not given any business training or capacity building measures associated with the NDP. Minister, why is it that women cooperatives, especially in the agricultural sector, are poorly supported and left at the mercy of the market and economic forces? The Executive Director of United Nations for Women, Ms. Mlambo Nguga, said, and I quote, "In Africa, 70% of crop production depends on women, yet women still own only 2% of the land," close quote. Women-owned enterprises face barriers and bottlenecks that hinder women-owned macro and medium enterprises from
Honourable
accessing
Member,
financing.
Your time is up. Honourable Mamorutwa.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members, and all guests in the gallery. I also greet the public. Good afternoon. As chairperson of the Multi-Party Women's Caucus, I dedicate this speech to the Nigerians who were abducted by Boko Haram in April 2014. As the Party Women's Caucus, we strongly condemn this act, and we are pleading for the release of these girls. We are also pleading to the governments to always ensure protection of women and children during instabilities and in times of warfare. The harm done to these girls is significant and has exposed them to further harm and violence such as rape and forced impregnation. The struggle continues, Makhosikazi. You strike a woman, you strike a rock. That is the slogan we all know in South Africa. Women have been fighting for equality and injustices since the beginning of time. The struggle for women's emancipation is closely linked to the liberation struggle in South Africa. Women have a long history of battling oppression, with some of the earliest accounts of anti-colonial resistance being traced to 1913, when black women in the Free State protested against discrimination on ownership of land. In 1918, the Bantu Women's League was established to lead the struggle against discrimination of women. This was led by Charlotte Maxeke. During the 1930s and 1940s, women were active participants in the passive resistance campaigns, mass protests, and demonstrations, which were led by the African National Congress. During the 1950s, the opposition to apartheid fight with the ANC leading a defiance campaign in 1952, and with this, the women's movement intensified with it. This upsurge culminated in 1954 in the formation of the Federation of South African Women, together women from the African National Congress, the South African Indian Congress, and the trade unions and self-help groups. It was the group of women of the 1954 Women's Charter, which called for the elimination of discriminatory laws. There is an African proverb that says, if you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a family nation. When women work, there is more growth in our economy, less poverty, and the gap of inequalities closes. Empowerment of women is the critical and central in leading with the socio-economic ills of the world. The Beijing International Gathering of Women in September 1995 determined to advance the goals of equality, development, and peace for all women everywhere in the interest of all humanity. Women empowerment is strategic for empowerment of all humanity. Great unrest and critical debate was occurring amongst women in the 19th century. In those days, women's oppression and inequality spurring women to become more vocal and active in campaigning for change. Then in 1908, on the 8th of March, 15,000 women marched through New York City demanding shorter hours, better pay, and voting rights. National Women's Day is celebrated in many countries around the world. It is a day when women are recognized for their achievements without regard to divisions, whether national, ethnic, linguistic, cultural, economic, or political. International Women's Day first emerged from the activities of labor movements of the 20th century in North America and across Europe. Since those early years, International Women's Day has assumed a new global dimension for women in developed and developing countries alike. The growing international women's movement, which has been strengthened by 4 global United Nations Women's Conferences, has helped make the commemoration a rallying point to build support for women's rights and participation in the political and economic arenas. The Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action of 1995 is a visionary agenda for the empowerment of women. It still remains today the most comprehensive global policy framework and blueprint for action. The Platform for Action covers 12 critical areas of concern that are as relevant today as 20 years ago: poverty, education and training, health, violence, armed conflict, economy, power and decision-making, institutionalism, human rights, media, environment, and the girl child. For each critical area of concern, strategic objectives identified as well as detailed catalogue of related actions to be taken by governments and other stakeholders at national, regional, and national level. Since 1995, governments, civil society, and other stakeholders have worked with eliminate discrimination against women and girls and achieve equality in all areas of life, in public and private spaces. Discriminatory legislation is being removed. The violence against women and girls' harmful practices addressed. There have been significant gains in enrollment and women's participation in the labor force, and the economy is growing in some regions. With regards to South Africa's progress in relation to Beijing Platform of Action, we welcome the final report by the Minister of Women in the Presidency to be submitted on behalf of South African at the 59th session of the United Nations Commission on Status of Women, to be hosted next week. Women's representation in national parliament now exceeds 30% globally. Significant normative advances have been made in the agenda on women, peace and security. Much has been achieved, but progress has been unacceptably slow and uneven, particularly for the most marginalized women and girls who experience multiple intersection forms of discrimination. General Secretary of the UN, Ban Ki-moon, said in the face of new forces threatening to curtail the rights of women and girls, we must return to the agenda set by the Platform for Action and renew our commitments to carry it out in full. The milestone anniversary coincides with the once-in-a-generation opportunity presented in 2015. During this single year, we must do our to achieve the Millennium Development Goals, adopt a post-2015 agenda with a new generation of sustainable development goals, and a meaningful universal climate agreement. As we look ahead to creating a more sustainable, inclusive, and peaceful world, I applaud the visionary leadership of those who crafted the Platform for Action and urge a new generation of gender equality advocates to join men in advancing this cause. When we empower women and girls, we will realize a better future for all. The past 3 decades have witnessed a steady awareness of the need to empower women through
Order,
measures
honorable
to
members.
improve social, economic.
Honorable Story.
Say, Madam.
Order, honorable members. Can we please speak a bit lower to allow the speaker to be heard? You can continue, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. Along with awareness of the subordinate status of women has come the concept of gender as an overarching socio-cultural variable seen in the relation to other factors such as race, age, and ethnicity. Gender equality refers to that stage of human social development at which the rights, responsibilities, and opportunities of individuals will not be determined by the fact of being born male or female. In other words, a stage when both men and women realize their full potential. In recognition of the importance of establishing gender equality around the world, the United Nations Development Fund for Women was established as a separate fund within the United Nations Development Program in 1984. At that time, the General Assembly instructed it to ensure women's involvement in the mainstream economic activities. The Platform for Action resulting from the 19 Beijing World Conference on Women expanded the concept, calling it gender mainstreaming. That is the application of gender perspective to all legal and standards, to all policy development, research, planning, advocacy, development, implementation, as a mandate for all member states. In this way, the gender factor is no longer to be only a supplement to development, but central to the practice of development. As a result of Beijing Conference and the many years of work leading up to it, more than 100 countries announced new initiatives to improve the status of women. In 2000, the follow-up Beijing +5 conference further strengthened the application of the mainstreaming concept and highlight the need for more progress in reaching equality world. According to United Nations statistics, the following has been achieved or recorded in relation to women in the economy. This is attributed to the fact that when more women work, economies grow. There has been the following: an increase in female participation in the labor force, which has resulted in faster economic growth, evidence from a range of countries that shows increasing the share of household income controlled by women, either through their own earnings or cash transfers, changes that benefit children. Increasing women and girls' education contributes to higher economic growth. Increased educational attainment accounts of about 50% of the economic growth in organizations for economic cooperation and development. Countries over the past 50 years, of which over half is due to girls having had access to higher levels of education. and achieving greater equality in the number of years spent in the education between men and women. The majority of women, significant gains in the education have not translated into better labor market outcomes.
Member, your time is up. Honorable Carter.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, according to KPMG, gender violence is too costly to ignore. I propose that every one of us study the report that was issued by KPMG. The report states, assuming that 1 in 5 women experience violence within a year, the minimum annual cost to the South African economy is 28.4 billion rand. This cost can, according to KPMG, provide youth wage subsidies for 100% of unemployed youth, provide national health insurance to 1/4 of South Africans, pay all disability and old age grants until 2016, pay 900,000 engineering students' fees, build over 500,000 RDP houses, pay all child support grants for 8 years until 2022, and fund over 200,000 primary school teachers' salaries for 1 year. The sad reality is that year after year, with each commemorative day, we pontificate about our successes and discuss the same things. And yet, as I stand here, women are being abused, raped, kidnapped, sold, enslaved, and murdered. Have we developed a just, tolerant, and moral society for the common good of all? Will we one day see and experience the actualization and realization of the values and the ideals enshrined in our Constitution? Or have we really lost our morality as a nation? The fact of the matter is that it is nigh impossible to legislate or enforce of a morally principled society. Morality concerns the distinction between right and wrong, or good and bad behavior. Morality relates to a set of ethical standards that are generally accepted by society. In a sense, it operates like an unwritten constitution by providing a conceptual framework that can be used to establish choice with specific context. The sad reality is that it's perfectly possible for an action to be lawful, but to be of questionable morality. The example that immediately sprang to mind was Nkandla. The point here is what might be considered lawful by some does not necessarily equate to what is morally right, given the extreme in our country and government's often stated commitment to alleviating poverty. My message is that we can pontificate about our new democratic order, our constitution, and our legislative framework. It all comes to naught in a morally corrupted environment. As leaders of our society, as legislators, please let's take this forward. I thank you.
Honorable Dudley.
Thank you, Chair. I was pondering what needed to be said in this debate as I got in my car on Tuesday evening, and being a fan of many things 60s and 70s, including music, on my playlist is the song Nobody's Child. And with the chorus repeating the words, I'm nobody's child, I'm nobody's child. I'm like a flower just growing wild. No mommy's kisses and no daddy's smiles. Nobody wants me, I'm nobody's child. Times for me to decide that I had to stay on the issue of adoption. No matter how much we talk about your child as my child, a child knows the difference. There are those who know what it's like to physically experience the love of a mommy and daddy, and those who don't. For too many children in South Africa, this basic right to loving parents and a family is denied them. The ACDP has been placing the adoption issue on the table consistently over the years, but the adoption system in South Africa is failing. It's failing government, failing our children, failing us all. Bureaucracy, missing documents, the inefficient court processes are just some of the blockages to matching children with suitable parents, resulting in fewer children being adopted each year. Nationally, adoptions decreased about 50% from 2,840 in 2004 to 448 last year. Social workers and prospective parents are saying the Children's Act is partly to blame. While it is considered a good piece of legislation, implementation has caused challenges like illegal immigrants being unable to legally place their children in the formal child protection system in South Africa and face deportation if they even try. Anonymous child abandonment being criminalized, with mothers facing charges of concealment of birth and attempted murder, and baby safes drop-off points where mothers babies anonymously and safely being then considered illegal in terms of the Act. Form 30, a document that confirms an applicant is not on the Child Protection Register, people considered unsuitable to work with or adopt children due to criminal convictions should take up to 21 days, but many wait as much as 6 months. Applications frequently go missing and applicants are told to resubmit for a second and even third time with no explanation. Delays in receiving unabridged birth certificates stop new parents traveling with their baby and prevent mothers from claiming UIF for maternity leave. Relinquishing parental rights so a child can be adopted can only be done without a legal guardian's consent from the age of 18. Now, while this seems reasonable to the ACDP, it is absurd that the same child of any age that can have an abortion without parental consent cannot give their child up for adoption instead. Over the past 16 years, I've witnessed the relationship with adoption that the department has. The suspicion and negative perceptions, especially when it comes to international
Honourable
adoptions.
Member, your time is up.
Then I thank you. Ta.
Honourable Zike.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson, honourable members of Parliament. Firstly, let me join the people of Northwest Province and the country at large in wishing a life full of blessings and happiness to Ma'am Rebecca Kotane, a political activist, a participant in the 6 Women's March, to the Union Building, the wife to the late Moses Kotane, when she was celebrating her 103 years birthday on the 12th February 2015. Ma'am Rebecca, this country is proud of you, and the ANC wish you all the best in life. You to take pride in drawing inspiration from your footprints, which remain a unique landmark in the shape and face of the South African landscape. Honorable members, 2015 also marked the 20th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, as well as the targets year for achieving our Millennium Development Goals, both of which obligate the state to action policies and programs which should set a roadmap for setting the agenda for realizing women's rights. As we brace ourselves for the update on the implementation by the country of the MDG, we also anticipate positively the beginning of a new Sustainable Development Goals. It is against this background, therefore, that we are tuned to celebrate the major achievements and join hands in our diversity to make South Africa an incubator for women empowerment and gender equality. Honorable members, 2015 was also declared by the African nation as the year of women empowerment and development towards Africa 2063. At the AU Stakeholders Forum meeting, the AU Chairperson, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, asserted that if women are emancipated and uplifted, the human race will get better. The ownership of this idea across the continent must be substantial to make the aspiration of Agenda 2063 happen. The chairperson also stressed that women issues should be completely and fully integrated in our 10-year plan of action for the implementation of this Agenda 2063. This should include mainstreaming of women in all sectors, as well as ensuring women's access to modern agricultural technologies, land and capital to improve their productivity in agribusiness and in ICT. Honorable members, Agenda 2063 requires Africans to work together to entrench a culture of respect based on the promotion and protection of women's rights. This culture will be premised, among others, an effective and accountable gender and women empowerment, values and ethics, research, studies, and evaluation. It calls upon all women and in whatever position to facilitate and women's literacy. As women, we hold a strong view that a girl of today is a woman of tomorrow. This, therefore, honorable members, make it easier to mobilize all male gender champions to engage themselves in fighting all forms of violence against women. Honorable members, as a country, we stand resolute in condemning the abduction of the girl children by Boko Haram in Nigeria, as Honorable Muruta did indicated. We cannot remain silent at the face of sheer disregard of the fundamental rights of women and girls of the world. As guided by the spirit and the tone of Agenda Africa 2063, all African states need to work together to fight the mushrooming tendencies of abducting women and children as a matter of agents. Honorable members, we continue to stand by the call across the world that the innocent girls in Nigeria must be released with immediate effect by Boko Haram. We cannot allow a situation wherein women and children are commodified or used as human shield for political or religious purposes. Their fundamental rights for freedom are grossly undermined and will continue to condemn such act of unequaled cruelty. The celebration of this International Women's Day highlights the importance of achieving equality of women and girls, as well as an acknowledgement of the progress that has been made thus far in addressing traditional women oppression in many communities. Important gains have been made by the African National Congress in the achievement of the gender parity in the schooling enrollment, the impact on social grants on the women's poverty, addressing the primary health care needs of and girls, and great strides are made also in the representation of women at political and decision-making. This has also placed South Africa on the World Economic Forum Global Gender Gap Index, ranked number 18 amongst 142 countries. This evidence is clear. Equality for women means progress for all. The simple truth is evident in this government led by the ANC. The simple truth must be evident when we submit the CEDAW country report, the MDG's report, and all outstanding country reports that South Africa is a better than it was in 1994. However, a lot still needs to be done. As we celebrate International Women's Day, we acknowledge with pride the fact that our South African women leaders continue to make a mark on the international, regional, and national levels. We pride ourselves with the leadership of Nkosazana Zuma, Phumzile Mlambo Ngcuka, Bridget Mapandla, and many others. We have a common obligation, all the political parties, to protect also a girl child from being raped. We should also make such cultural practices like ukutwala to take place in the framework of law. Female genital mutilation must also be condemned at all costs. Women's rights are human rights too. In closing, let me quote Ban Ki-moon when she said, "Countries with more gender equality have better economic growth. Companies with more women leaders better. Peace agreements that include women are more successful. Parliament with more women enact more legislation on key social issues such as health, education, anti-discrimination, and child support." Honorable Speaker, if words were honey, I hope on behalf of the movement that carries the overwhelming mandate of the South Africans, encourage a certain province to reconstitute its membership in the legislature in order to address gender equality. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member Nchaisa. Order, honorable members.
Thank you, Chairperson. Be rest assured, I'm not going to withdraw from the podium. I saw it on Tuesday. The heavy charges now that come with withdrawal. Chairperson, the AIC acknowledges the International Women's Day on the 8th of March that is celebrated by different regions in the world. Our focus from celebration, it ranges from a general celebration of respect, appreciation, and love towards women to a celebration for women's political and social achievements. However, as AIC, we also see that attaining between women and men and eliminating all forms of discrimination against women are fundamental human. That as a country, we still lack a little bit. The recognizes that extensive discrimination continues to be practiced against women, and that one of the most pervasive forms of discrimination against women is endemic violence, which women suffer on all global scale, particularly at the hands of men. Violence against women occurs in different instances, including inter alia, domestic violence, rape, and other forms of sexual. The violence that women experience differs from the type of violence experienced by men. For example, Chairperson, women are susceptible to domestic violence and sexual assault in a way that men are not. Although men are sometimes the victims of domestic violence, the large majority of victims of the socio-economic evil are women. South Africa is considered to have the highest violence against women in the world. One in every 4 women in South Africa are battered by her husband. It's either a partner or boyfriend. The Department of Justice also estimates that 1 out of every 4 women in South Africa is a survivor of domestic violence. We must all have value for our women. As we approach this International Women's Day, may we put emphasis on the note that women's rights are also human rights.
Honorable member, your time is up. Honorable Chisonga.
Honorable Chair, honorable members, allow me to begin with the end in mind. Charity begins at home, not in a house. A house is where only a man lives. A home is a home because there is a woman. If you educate a man, you are indeed educating an individual. But if you educate women, you educate a nation. Abuse and discrimination are symptoms of a sick society. To heal the sickness, we need collective consciousness to empower women. Honorable Chair, according to a 2013 global review of available data, 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence. Women and represent 55% of the estimated 20.9 million victims of forced labor worldwide, and 98% of the estimated 4.5 million forced into sexual exploitation. An estimated 125 million women and girls living today have undergone female genital mutilation, in the 29 countries where data exists. This Honorable Chair, this is the state of women in the world. Very little difference in the situation of a large part of women in our country. We are misleading ourselves if we claim that we have enough progress in the circumstances of women generally and black women in particular. South Africa, therefore, we align itself with the UN Women's Strategy to prevent and respond to violence against women. We believe that it is important to expand to service for women and girls, even though progress is being made globally. Many women and girls who experience physical and sexual violence still lack access to quality service. It should be the responsibility of all of us. That is why I'm talking about collective business. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Jim McKay.
Thank you, Speaker. In 2009, global superstar and controversial pop singer Madonna released a track entitled What It Feels Like to Be a Girl. The opening lines of this song, for those not familiar, reads as follows. Girls can wear jeans and cut their hair short, wear shirts and boots because it's okay to be a boy. But for a boy to look like a girl is degrading, because we think that being a girl is degrading. Although never a major hit for the artist, the song was critically acclaimed for its astute articulation of the double standard applied to women by society. That of claiming gender equality while continuing to perpetuate hurtful myths about female inferiority. This exact theme was rearticulated on a grand scale on the 1st of February, this time on arguably the world's biggest stage, the NFL's Super Bowl Sunday. In front of no less than 160 million viewers, or about half of the US population, Always, the makers of feminine hygiene products such as Always Ultra sanitary pads, initiated or ignited debate when it screened a 60-second ad under the hashtag Like a Girl. In the ad, made documentary style, adults and a little boy are asked to run, fight, and throw like a girl. Unsurprisingly, they perform these tasks in the wimpiest and silliest ways possible. The ad then switches to a group of preteen girls who are asked to do the same thing. However, these young girls run as fast as they can and throw and punch with concentration and vigor. They do this, Chair, because for girls, unlike boys and adults, throwing like a girl is simply the same thing as throwing like a person. You see, Chair, in their young minds, equality is assumed. They've yet to be exposed to a world where to be like a girl is to be less or not as good as. They've yet to face the harsh realization that gender equality exists more as an ideal than a reality. This is true globally, and this is especially true in South Africa. To disabuse young girls of the notion of their equality is to commit a most heinous crime against girl children. It is an unspeakable act of violence because these effects are in many ways irreversible. Once the damage is done, once a girl child believes herself inferior, there's little that can be done to restore her confidence. Sadly, the South African state is culpable in committing such violence against our sisters and daughters. There are countless daily examples of how the South African state fail our women. There may be valid reasons for this, but let me be clear, there are no valid excuses. It is, for example, inexcusable that the bodily integrity of 2.1 million girls aged between 12 and 18 is compromised by having to resort to using old clothes, rags, newspapers, leaves, barks, and grass because they cannot afford sanitary pads. Inexcusable that a basic biological feature of womanhood means that girls who cannot afford sanitary pads are missing up to 5 days of school a month and up to 60 days of school a year. At our poverty rates, Chair, this effectively means that 80% of South Africa's 9 million school-going girls are missing a week of school every month. The result, according to UNICEF, is that 1 in every 10 schoolgirls in South Africa will drop out of school completely due to this. This is to say nothing about the deficit that is compounded over time and which renders girls less skilled and competent than boys, limiting female mobility and long-term economic viability. So it seems, Chair, as simple as a sanitary pad is effectively achieving what the architects of Bantu education wished for, namely the denial for black children, and more specifically black girls, of their right to a decent education. And yet, this is the most solvable problem in our country today. That it has not been solved is an absolute indictment on this House, and particularly of the current administration. We can do better. Here are the facts. The average sanitary pad costs R1.50. The average girl uses approximately 25 sanitary products during one menstrual cycle. Doing the math, that equates to just 38 Rand per month. 38 Rand, honourable members, is the cost of the dignity of a girl child. Isn't it about time we put our money where our lip service is? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Memela.
Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Speaker, the MCs, and all the respective members who are present here today. Before I say anything, may I educate the young honourable member of the DA who has been here before me. Just go back and actually get more information about the sanitary pad thing. There's a program going on, every school is supplied. Thank you.
On a point of order, Chairperson.
Honourable members.
Honourable Memela.
Honourable members. Of
Honourable
the
Memela, can you take your seat?
Chairperson.
Honourable Member, what point are you rising on?
Chairperson, with all due respect, I think the honourable member is misleading the House. Not all of the schools are having sanitary pads or being supplied with sanitary pads. I think the person that is giving the honourable member is giving her wrong information. She is, in fact, misleading the House, and we cannot leave this lying down. We want actual figures, because this is
Honourable Member,
very critical
you can take
issue.
your seat. Honourable Member Memela, you can proceed. Order, honourable
Unfortunately,
members.
I'm not going to be wasting time unnecessarily. Honourable DA members, don't shout at me. Don't shout at me.
Honourable members, order.
This is a
Order, honourable members.
It is.
Honourable Memela, can you please proceed with your speech?
International Women's Day is celebrated every year on the 8th of March to mark and acknowledge the economic, political, social contributions and achievements of women. United Nations began celebrating 8th March as International Women's Day in 1995, which was International Women's Year. 2 years later, in December 1977, the United General Assembly adopted a resolution claiming a United Nations Day for Women's Rights and international peace to be observed on any day of the year by member states in accordance with their historical and national traditions. According to the UN Women, its theme for this year's International Women's Day is the clarion call on UN Women's Beijing Plus 20 campaign, empowering women, empowering humanity. Picture it. The Beijing Platform for Action was signed by 189 governments 20 years ago and set the agenda for realizing women's rights. Notwithstanding the many achievements, made and successes in the advancement of women's rights, UN Women notes many serious gaps still remain. The UN Women Executive Director, Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, message for International Women's Day was as follows: gender parity must be reached before 2030 so that the sluggish trajectory of progress can be reserved that condemns a child born today to wait 80 years before they see an equal world. As such, the Executive Director called on all countries to step it up for gender equality, to reach Planet 50-50 before 2030. Furthermore, the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, in his message International Women's Day 2015, noted that when we unleash the power of women, we secure the future for all. The debate on International Women's Day 2015 takes into consideration both the UN and the AU themes. There are areas that have been outlined by previous speakers. The Convention on the Elimination of Forms of Discrimination Against Women also takes an important place in bringing women into focus with regards to human rights. The spirit of the Convention is rooted in the goals of the United Nations to reaffirm the belief in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of people, and in the equal rights of men and women. CEDAW stipulates the agency of the elimination, stereotypes, customs, and norms that give rise to the many legal, political, and economic constraints on women. On the African continent, the Protocol to the African Charter of Human and People's Rights and the SADC Gender Protocol are regional instruments which all gives expression to women's rights. South Africa prides itself in being a signatory to all these international and regional instruments. The Constitution and the development of domestic legislation, policy, and programs is how South Africa, as a member state, gives effect to these instruments. Notwithstanding the legislative framework in place based in international and regional as well as domestic legislation, women have particular difficulties accessing their rights. Justice sector institutions are key to the legal protection and enforcement of human rights. But despite this, women are subject to discrimination and secondary victimization due to gender biases within the infrastructure of the justice system, be it by the police, the courts, etc. Structural inequalities also act as a barrier to justice. For example, lack of time, confidence, literacy, and access to information. It has also been argued that even when women are aware of their rights, they encounter many obstacles in assessing them. These relate to patriarchal attitudes, cultural and religious norms and values that may curtail the rights of women and girls, which is besides the structural inequalities that exist and the systematic change. Thus, while the lack of access to land and property, education, healthcare, credit, information, technology, and so forth, all inhibit access to rights, it is important to understand why women disempowered. And we are now asking the traditional leaders to start working on handing over the land to the women to till it, because we have been doing this for decades. As noted by the Deputy Chairperson of the South African Human Rights Commission, Prex Governor, South African women still face serious challenges in realizing their human rights as enshrined in the Constitution. And that understand why there are still high levels of poverty, inequality, unemployment, and violence directed at women. Poverty is a major barrier for women who are more likely than men to have limited access to resources. Feminization of poverty is a reality in South Africa. Women face higher levels of poverty and assume multiple roles, which include the burden of care for family members. The President noted on Women's Day last year that women at work still experience discriminatory practices based on gender as pay inequalities, sexual harassment, and practices discrimination against pregnant women workers. Statistics South Africa has indicated in both its recent report, Development Goals, and the Gender Statistics in South Africa report of 2011, that women continue to be disproportionately affected by poverty in the country. As such, women experience far higher unemployment and lower levels of participation in the economy as compared to men. The question then is, but what can be done to change the status quo?
Honorable member, your time is up. Order, honorable members. This concludes the debate on this order of order, honorable members. Honorable members, yesterday during the question for oral reply to ministers in the Peace and Security Cluster, I undertook to come back to the House in regard to a statement made by Honorable M.S. Mbata in follow-up question to the reply given by the minister. Honorable members, I wish to indicate that the ruling is ready. However, because the honorable concern is not in the House, we will not proceed with giving the ruling. Therefore, this concludes the business of the House, and the House is adjourned.